Hello everybody. Yesterday I asked you to tell me what's the hardest thing about GCSE English language or literature, and I was amazed by how many of you responded. Over 2,000 people watched the video in the first day, hundreds of comments, and the answer was pretty much what don't we struggle with? But I want to address one of the things that popped up a lot, which was choosing and memorizing quotations. And you can see a few of those comments on the screen here. I, screenshotted about 10 of them and thought, right, let's make a video on this. So what I want to talk to you about is the process of choosing quotations and then some ideas about memorizing those quotations. In the mark scheme for GCSE English Literature, you're required to write about the writer's ideas and perspectives. In other words, why did they write the text? And I think it's really important, whichever literature texts you're studying, to stop and ask yourself, what is the message, what is the theme, what is the idea or perspective the writer is trying to get across? Now, I know that a lot of you are studying Macbeth and A Christmas Carol and An Inspector Calls. So let me give you an example. This is actually Romeo and Juliet, sorry. So if you're studying Romeo and Juliet, you might say, okay, in that text we have these major themes of attitudes to love, of fate, of gender, family relationships, a criticism of Catholicism. In a Christmas Carol, it is the theme of social responsibility, the idea of the rich-poor divide, class, compassion and forgiveness. Of course, An Inspector Calls is very, very similar. Social responsibility, capitalism versus socialism, class, young versus old. So you want to start off by asking yourself, what are the major themes of the text I'm studying? And this is not an exhaustive list, it's just some ideas, okay? And then you want to say, okay, now I want to find quotations to go with these themes. Because I think one of the issues is that if you look at a text like, let's just take Romeo and Juliet, and you ask yourself, do I need to memorize a handful of quotations for Romeo, a handful for Juliet? Well, what if it's a different character? What if it's, Capulet, a few more quotations for him? What I think is the best thing to do is to ask yourself which quotations cover the major themes of a text and could be applied to any question. So if we take An Inspector Calls as an example, this is a quotation from the Inspector, Inspector Gould. We are members of one body, we are responsible for each other. And this is a quotation which really sums up the whole message of the entire text. It really is as if Priestley's voice is coming through in this quotation, isn't it? This is, Priestley speaking through the character of Inspector Gould, talking about this idea of social responsibility. And I would say that this quotation could be used in any exam answer on An Inspector Calls, because it applies to the overall message and theme of the text. It is the idea and perspective that the writer is trying to get across. It is the message that everybody either does learn or doesn't learn, but it is the message that is supposed to be learned from the text. And I think this is a quotation that if you memorize it, you can use it in any answer. So that's what you're looking for, quotations that apply to numerous characters and numerous themes and sort of points. That's the key thing with quotation memorization. If you start thinking, I want 5 quotations for Sheila, 5 for Gerald, 5 for Mr. Burling, 5 for Mrs. Burling, it gets ridiculous. Okay, so that's my approach to choosing quotations, is to know the text really well, to ask yourself what are the writer's ideas, perspectives, themes, what's the main message of the text, and to have quotations for those. Now, hopefully you know that I have a revision songs playlist, and I have taken what I believe to be key quotations for each of the texts and put them to music. That's my approach to memorizing key information, is to put it to music. You don't have to do that. You might take these quotations and write them on post-its and stick them around the house. You might put them on a card and have one side that says, social responsibility, and then the quotations on the other side, and then ask your parents or your friends to test you. You might put them to music like I have, or you might actually just listen to my revision songs. But that's one thing that I think is a really good approach to memorizing key quotations, is to put them to music. And I've done that for a number of the key texts. I've got 25 videos in my revision songs playlist. It's not every text, and it's not necessarily an exhaustive list of quotations. These are the only quotations that you need to know. But I think the thing is, and this is my worry, students are at risk of putting too much effort and too much hard work into memorizing key quotations. I saw it in the comments section. A lot of you frustrated that you're having to, essentially you feel like it's a memory test. If you put it to music, then it becomes quite easy to memorize for a lot of us anyway, not for everybody. And then you can put the hard work, the deep thinking, the kind of main effort of your brain into the other things that you need to study, such as the writer's use of, structure, how the messages are created, coming up with a conceptualized response, whatever it is. So for me, you start with the writer's ideas and themes. You pick quotations that are not so specific that you would think, oh, I can only use this quotation if a question comes up on this tiny little niche, but quotations that really cover the overall message of the text. Put them to music, or watch my videos, or write them on post-it notes or flashcards or whatever it is, and then attempt past questions and see if those quotations are enough, and if not, maybe add to them or take away and that sort of thing. So hopefully that's helpful. If it is, give the video a thumbs up, and I'll address some of your other comments from the video as well.